Welcome in everyone to week one of the summer series that we're doing. In lieu of an in-person webinar, we thought one of the things is that we have this workshop day, and there's so many good things about it. There's the conversations covering the topics, and then there's the in-person gathering, getting to talk with other educators. And sometimes it's hard to have the best of both worlds at once, so we separated those. And so we're kind of doing all the knowledge presenting in this 4 weeks, the 4 Mondays. And they're recorded so that you can go back with cool slideshows. um, and then the goal is here at the end of June to have an in-person gathering that has no presentations, but it's just a fun gathering for uh, all of you teachers to celebrate the school year that you had, look forward to the next one, and bounce ideas off each other. So we're thinking somewhere in Omaha at the moment. So um, I'll take any suggestions if you're watching the recording back. Um, and so uh, yeah, excited for that event, but super excited to talk about what we've prepared for today. Me and Jordan have been spending some time on this topic, and we even had a pre call just before this, and just re-going through what we're talking about. And I'm super excited to talk about this because gear and equipment is that piece that you need to have in order to enable your students to get the opportunity, right? And so everything starts with the right gear and getting the right pieces first, and not skipping any of the orders, right? And so we're going to talk through that. Obviously, we've got Jordan Burns on here. He's part of Nick's Alive. Jordan, I know we didn't talk about this, but just for those that might not know you, you're obviously been in the community and we've worked with you a lot, but just kind of give us an introduction about kind of your program and the growth that you guys have had.
Gotcha. Yep. So we started technically, I think it was the 2019 school year, 2019, maybe it's 2019, 2020, I believe the school year is what it was. We had, as a club, we had a couple the year before, we had a few different instances where we tried to help the person that was doing the live stream, the one-man band, kind of get some kids alongside them and assist and bring a little bit of a energy to the broadcast because there was none before. And so we just finished our 25-26 school year, and I'm a little mad at my baseball team, by the way. I should have said that before because they lost in districts. I am like 4,000 people away from 200,000 viewers this year. And so the growth on that is just wild. Never thought I would be in a situation where I've got 14 kids running a broadcast and have the 200,000 viewers, 2,000 hours of watch time over. I don't remember exactly what it is. So it's pretty crazy to see. And the kids have really taken a hold of it. The community has taken a hold of it. And our sports program's been good. So people have been ready to tune in and watch. And so it's been fun to see that growth over those 5 or 6 years that we've been doing this. And it's not always been that big blockbuster shot that we had. It's started out real small. I don't know if you have that graphic or a picture of what it started with back in 2018. But it was a doozy. I'll say that. It's definitely upgraded a little bit since then. And so it's pretty remarkable. I've got about 60 kids in the class now. And so we have a lot of kids doing a lot of different events. I think we covered about 145 events this school year. And so we stay busy. But it's been a lot of fun to see that growth. And we started out with just doing football and then got into basketball and then boys and girls basketball. So it was baby steps to get started, but now we pretty much cover anything and everything that Nick's Athletic has to offer. So
Yeah, and that's awesome. And like you said, and we'll get to you said 14, crew members. We've got that listed out and exactly what they do and the picture, and we'll get to that later in the
awesome.
presentation as we kind of do a deeper dive. But I think the important thing is start out small, and we'll go through the order of the pieces, and you know not saying you did everything right, like in hindsight, being able to look back, that's 2020. And so being able to like, all right, instead of doing this, if I had to start from scratch all over again, um, I would change my ways. So just wanted to kind of have that introduction there, so this is not just coming from me and Taylor and the work that we've done over the years with schools, but it's coming directly from an educator that's in that seat, um, that is the exact same as you guys, throughout the year. It's
I
always
also,
fun for me. Yeah, go ahead.
um, we're a school of about 2000s, 9 through 12, about 2000 kids. So we're a fairly large school. I don't know what that is comparison. We're in from Missouri, so we're a class 6 school. I don't know what that kind of compares to the Nebraska crew that we have up there, but fairly large school. But in reality, the gear and equipment, like, we've been fortunate enough to get a bunch of stuff and grow over those 5 or 6 years, but it's all because we put the time and effort in those first few years to make that happen. We started out with, like, we just seen a minute, one camera and two students. So anybody can do that. And we can get up higher and higher and have a better broadcast as we go, even if you're a teeny tiny school all the way up to a large school like we're at. But
Yeah, and we've seen that across Nebraska as we work with our Nebraska schools, is that there are different levels. I think, your size, we're looking at maybe a class A, class B school in Nebraska, just a larger town, and you guys are right outside of Springfield, so definitely a large population area. And um, me and Taylor actually got to go down there for the workshop and tour of the school, and it's like, whoa, this is cool, and you guys have awesome facilities. And it clearly, it's also just a school that prioritizes education and like opportunities for students, right? And that's not just seen in your broadcast program; that's everything else. And so that can kind of be a good indicator too, as you're looking through. It's like, all right, do we prioritize the other things as well? And that helps kind of push that. All right, we prioritize athletics and we prioritize getting kids hands-on learning opportunities. All right. Well, this is the intersection, is the broadcasting in high school of sports for those students, is it's in sports and it's hands-on. So I love that. So just kind of breaking it down, the 4-week map, as we go through it. Obviously, this week gear and equipment, which we're going to get into here shortly. Week 2, next week, we're going to talk about broadcast graphics, and Jordan was sharing a little bit with me on some stuff he's working on. Look at that! Look at that smile. He's excited about that.
more
Um,
help.
so so yeah, we were excited about week 2, and week 3, kind of talking about the crew and operations. Just something simple of like, you know, it. We're starting to see in the industry more behind the scenes looks. People are sharing videos about like what it's like in the broadcast truck, but from people like us that have ran high school live productions, kind of showing you what it takes to run that, what it takes to keep that organized. And then week 4, we want to talk about program building. We want to talk about that year over year growth, because that's the piece that ties all of this together, right? You can get all the gear and equipment, you can get, you can make the cool graphics, but if you don't have that mindset for year over year growth, whatever you buy you might not be using it in a couple years, right? So we want to be intentional about everything we do, especially since um, you know sometimes we're working with limited money and limited budgets. So and then the goal at the end of each of these is to have something for you to, an idea for you to take and either work on the week, or something that you could do with your students when you get back to school week 1. And I know you guys just got out of school, and I know it's probably not great to start talking about it already again. Um, but to get your program to a place where it's really student driven and student ran, it takes that level of thinking, and that is what I spend all my time every day thinking about, is all of this year round. So that's why I'm fired up. It also happens to be a little bit of the Red Bull, because 9 a.m. on a Monday morning is a fantastic time to to consume some caffeine. So we are ready to go. So the first question I want you to think about here as we start talking about gear, and obviously you're watching the recording. Just kind of write this down, or send me a DM in Future Ready Educators with your answer. But like, what's the next upgrade that you're thinking about, right? Because we're humans, and uh, me as a human, I like to buy things, especially if I have, the money to buy things. And so when I'm sitting here in my home office, I'm like, what's the next thing that I can get? I got a little. It's over there. It's a globe, little miniature globe from Walmart. It's pretty sick. I was like, this feels like I'm back in a classroom. So just trying to trying to connect with you guys. But what's the next thing? Like, you're thinking about it as you're sitting in your broadcast. Like, we have all this stuff. What's the next coolest thing? For some of you, you might not know, right? And you might have three options, and you're like, how do I go through this and prioritize in the right way? Uh, and some of you might be super dead set on one item, but maybe by the end of this, you're like, ooh, maybe I should think a little bit more about it, because if I buy this, I'm gonna have to buy this as well to go with it. And then all of a sudden, you're in this big, like, now instead of spending just maybe $4,000 for an item, you have to buy the other $3,000 in the pieces that are needed before you get to that point. And so that's something that we're gonna, as we talk through it, we're gonna think about that, right? Is there is an order, and there are lessons to be learned at each stage, and so we don't want to skip over those lessons. I think maybe Jordan, you could attest this. It's as much as we all want to grow something fast, there is a lot of knowledge gained in growing a program step by step.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew too fast, in my opinion, and so it was one of those things where, like, I've hit a lot of bumps along the way, things not working like we thought they would, or hoping they would, or we were like, "Ooh, this is a pretty new item, we should get it," and then come to find out that our workflow that we have, like, it may not even be compatible with it, or it just took so much of the resource from our broadcast that the rest of our broadcast, not necessarily failed, but didn't look as good as it should have. And so that was kind of a big learning curve for me, like what equipment works with what, and how do we continue to improve and not go like one step forward and then try to new equipment and then go two steps back because we can't get it all to mesh and work like it should. And so that's definitely one of the issues that I ran into along the way. Like, yeah, it's fun. I always, when I look at upgrading, I always try to have the kids also input in there. Like, what do they want to see coming from the future? For instance, we got to work a game at Missouri State. The kids got to go sit courtside with a wireless camera up top, so they could still see the broadcast, and that made them decide that here at Nixa we also need to sit courtside, and so that took a little bit of a learning curve and figuring out one, where are we going to get a table anyway? We got lucky that there was an old one that we refurbished that they still had laying around, so it worked out. But, like, those little things like that, like, kids are gonna see something online or watching TV or seeing another broadcast, and they're gonna wanna replicate it, and then how can you make that possible, in your classroom or whatever it might be? And then I think we said it a little bit later, like, how do you make that repeatable? So one kid's excited about it, how do we make 100 kids excited about it, so we can now make this last 10 years type of thing, so
Yeah, and I think that's awesome to take that perspective, from the students, because at the end of the day, what we're going to preach is we want the students to take the ownership of it, right? We want them to be heavily involved, and so if you build a program that is based around them, then that becomes even better. Like, it's one thing to, you know, you have this idea, and like all of a sudden this piece of equipment is too complicated that your students don't even know how to run it. Well, that's a waste of money, even though it might, you could buy the six-figure broadcast camera, right? But if your kids don't know how to operate any of the buttons, the dials, have no idea what it means, and doesn't have all the back end processing, we go further into that. But like, it was a terrible purchase, right? Even if you had the money. And so that's one of the things, as we talk about this, obviously, we're in Future Ready Educators. This is a free community, but it's built by uh, us at Striv Education, and we've been in this student led broadcasting game for a long time, and that's how I got my start in high school. I was a part of my broadcast group for 3 years. I was kind of the lead on driving innovation and talking to my teacher and saying, "Hey, this is the thing." Um, and we've had a podcast about this gear topic that me and Taylor have talked about, and Taylor's just listening into this call. But you know, thinking about, there is a proper order, and we've taken the knowledge we've gained over the last, you know, 8 years or so of really having dedicated programs and seeing them grow. Taking examples like, what Jordan's done at Nixa and saying like, hey, this is an order, and it's a real thing, and every time we apply it, it remains true. And so it usually tells me we're onto something, right? Um, and Jordan, like you said, most programs upgrade by excitement and not by impact. There are little things, and I think next week's live webinar and the recording, like the broadcast graphics for us is such a, in my opinion, an under talked about thing that can take your broadcast from just being camera and audio to a production, right? Those are the elements that really, take it up a notch. And I'll be honest, to create graphics doesn't really cost a whole lot of money. And most of your, streaming programs already have a way to add in the media. And if you're a school, you've got your Canva for Education or Adobe Illustrator, any creating software. And so you have access to all the pieces you need. You just need to know how to do it. So we're excited for next week, but to stay on this week about the actual gear and equipment, what you need to know is that every dollar should move your broadcast up a level, right? Um, and part of that is knowing whether you're ready for that next level. Like you said, Jordan, sometimes you can grow too fast. Sometimes it's bumpy, and it's like, I think kind of what you were talking about is, yeah, your broadcast doesn't fail, but a piece of it suffers, right? You're not focused in, there are so many different areas in the broadcast that you have to be focused on, and that's why we stress setting standard operating procedures for your students, and so they're going through the same process every time to hopefully get a repeatable output. Right? There's still a little bit of skill needed from them that can't be replicated by saying do these steps, but if you trained your students to know what a good audio mix sounds like for your announcers and crowd audio, and so that they know that every time, then you no longer as a teacher have to necessarily worry about that part. And if you teach your director and your replay operators and your camera people what good framing is, now you don't have to worry about that. And now, hey, we know how to make good graphics and implement them at the right time. And now you don't have to worry about that, right? And so as you look at those three sections, you know, you as the teacher should be looking maybe at the broadcast as a whole and making sure that all the quality is rising at the same time. So, uh, again, we at Strive would love to help you. We sell the gear with Strive Audio Visuals, so we have a very good knowledge of what's out there for products, and what fits your exact need. And so, yeah, I think that's the piece that we want to reframe here as we get into a little bit more in depth of how, Jordan, you started at Nixa.
Let's go back real quick. I would also say on that, like getting into the community and asking questions. Like there's a whole bunch of us have been at all different levels, whether you're brand new trying to get started, like you're like have no idea what to purchase next. Plenty of us are out there that would be more than willing to be like, hey, look, this is what we purchased next, and we probably shouldn't have. We should have went this direction instead. And so just asking those questions out there in that community and listening, or even if you have a big broadcast, things that worked for you and things that aren't working for you, or if you're stuck in a certain spot, like ask those questions. Let's get the community going and chatting, and so then we can all build off each other, make each other better, and grow these programs like we're wanting to.
And one more thing, now that you said that, you brought up when we thought about the topics for these 4 weeks, we scoured the community, and I looked through and I said, "All right, what is the thing that we have talked about the most? Like, let's hit that on week 1." And it was gear and equipment. Like, that is what everyone has questions about. So, that's why we're doing this, and that's why I love the community aspect, because we're able to take exactly what you're asking for and hopefully give you some answers today. So, all right, Jordan, now we can talk about 2018. Love this picture.
2018, that's where our production was. We borrowed a camera from the football team, the film guy. So that's what that is on that little tripod, and the tripod I borrowed from him too. We had production truck on my school issued laptop. And it was not good at the time, but it had enough juice to at least get production truck up and running. And then we had one kid running that camera and another kid putting quote unquote graphics up. It was the production truck graphics. Um, so they really didn't have to do a whole lot. But they were there to push some like intro up and scoreboard up, that type of stuff. So pretty basic from there. And then we had no announcers even at that time. So it was, and I went back and watched a couple of my first broadcasts. I'm like, who in the world would ever watch this? Because the audio, we were just pulling the gym audio. Sometimes it was really good. And if there was music playing, it was way too loud. I mean, it was kind of a mess. I'm like, who ever watched this thing? How do we ever get to where we did? And so yeah, that's where we started. And now we're, like I said, up to this huge program. But it was that right there that got us kicked off. I had the passion for it. I knew I could get kids involved in it, and I knew that I could get kids excited about it. And so it took about 2 years for me to even convince admin to allow me to have a class. So they just made it a club, an unpaid club, I should add. I didn't get paid for it those first 2 years, but I was like, I know I can make it happen. We can make it a class. And so now I do get paid for it, which is nice. But that's kind of where it started. It was started in our gym. We still have a production studio in our gym. I know a lot of schools, they've got kind of a classroom studio. I ventured to go into the gym and in out to the stadium. So we do a lot of moving of our equipment, which isn't always a good thing. And to start with, it was a battle trying to get all the equipment moved from one spot to another and get it all connected and working. So that's an area that I've definitely fixed. We still have to move equipment around, but everything's a little more attached and set in its place. And so, but I still have the freedom to move about, which is nice. That's I also think what kind of got our program growing so quickly was going in the gym, being visible in there, and having kids come up to their friends and be like, "What are you doing back here? What do you see?" And then now everyone comes up to us because it just looks fun. There's lots of buttons to push and looks techy and all that fun stuff. And so, yeah, like I said, we can build these programs. We can make them look just like that, where you have that one camera that's following, or even using a huddle camera to follow and just putting your announcer and stuff on there. That's one thing I wish I would have done. I don't know if we had a huddle camera though in 2018. I feel like we did, but just use that huddle camera and then put the student announcers over it, and then add graphics and all that stuff. And then once the kids get excited about it and bring their friends on, then you can start adding all the cameras and multi views and all that kind of stuff that we get to use each and every day here at Nixa. But that's where we started back in 2018. And really 2018 was just a year of, like I said, kind of helping the other guy that was doing the broadcast. We switched. He had a, oh man, live studio, maybe live stream studio, something like that is what he was using. But it was one man band. He did not like announcing, but he did a few games here and there. So that's where it was.
Yeah, that's awesome to see just the before picture, because obviously, like I said earlier, we have traveled out there and have seen what it is today. And that reminds me of like the setup that I started on, right? And the first stream I ever did was the one kid that normally had done it was sick, and so I did a volleyball game, and I sat up there with the laptop and the camera, and I was like, "Whoa, this is cool." Little did I know what it would turn into as my life's career of continuing to do it. But like you said, the passion to grow it, and I think that's the thing, is like getting the students to buy in. As teachers, The biggest thing that we can do is enable our students, right? That is what we do. We try to teach them, and we try to like say go out and do it, right? That's the whole goal. And so by keeping your program mostly visible, that's allowed students to come up and ask questions and be able to say, hey, this is what we're doing. But it also, you're teaching your students and you're saying, hey, here's how we do things. And so it's kind of the best of both worlds. And that's why I've fallen head over heels in love with student broadcasting, and committed to making my life's work. But
I'll also add, like before that, I teach at the rival high school that I went to school at, and they just started a program, and they went full out, bought a trailer, 3 play, TriCaster, the whole 9 yards. They had all these battery backups in case there was no power at the place. Like it was crazy. And really, no one knew how to use any of it. And that I, as a junior in high school, had no idea how to use it, but I kind of played with it, finagled with it, and got kind of that burning passion from that. And then I went to Nixon. I'm like, there is nothing here. What in the world? We've got to fix that. So I had a little bit of a background. I teach business and finance and marketing. So most of my day is that, but I do have a few at Nixon Live classes. But most of that's outside of the school day. And so, yeah, it was just like that other school, my rival school, they had all the equipment, but you look at their broadcast now and it's not even close to where we're at, even though they had all the equipment. It just stockpiles over there, really. They had a teacher leave, and the new teacher is trying to get back to, or at least up to where we're at, but it's a process. And he trying to learn all the equipment. He went back to the basic, which I think is a great thing. He went back. He doesn't even use the TriCaster or anything like that right now. It's just a real simple 2 or 3 camera, our announcers, and then he's going to build that program up and hopefully get it up and running. Back to the TriCaster, back to 3 play, back to doing all the fun nitty gritty things. But he's setting a foundation first, which I think is a great option there. So
yeah, I think that's awesome. And yes, we're human, so we all make mistakes. The important thing is to, I think, hearing that story of like, you might have overbought equipment. How do you return to basics? And knowing that your program can fluctuate year over year as kids either graduate or are no longer able to be in the program, or however it looks, like every year is not going to look the same. We want it to, and there's quite a few schools that are able to kind of keep it that way. But that kind of either limits growth because you're too afraid to take that next step, because what if we buy it and we don't have the kids to do it? That's a very valid concern. Or, what if we don't buy this equipment? We have too many kids and now we're not being able to give great opportunities. And so we understand the challenge of weighing all of these things in your mind, because, you know, you're also, responsible to, you know, administration to say, hey, we did make a smart purchase, or we kind of maybe messed up there. So, Jordan, kind of you talk about, reflecting and thinking about things, but like these bottlenecks, these three questions that we kind of have to find your bottleneck, kind of maybe walk us through them from your perspective.
So I'll start with like going small. The first thing was we were trying to get growing. We finally got multiple cameras, but we had no communication system whatsoever. And so we had no tally. We had nothing. Bird Dog had a comm system that we were using all NDI stuff for, but it was not working very well. And I just kept holding out hope, like, oh, the next update it'll fix it. Next update will fix it. Never did work really to where we wanted to, and it may work now, but back then it was not. And so we had no way to communicate to any of our camera operators when they were live. The only thing they could see possibly is if they were at a home game on the video board when they were live. Like if they happened to look up there and couldn't even see the screen, like that's the only way they knew they were live. So there was plenty of times those first few years, like some kid would have a really good shot and then get tired of that shot, so move, but he would be live. And so we'd get some awkward at times, and directors trying to switch cameras real quick and hoping that he had a camera to switch to, and not everyone was taking a break. So that was kind of the big one that I really wish I would have taken a step towards quicker is some sort of communication, to make that um, flow a little better. Because once we added a comm system to it where kids could talk to each other, and actually know when they were live, or have a director point a kid to a camera, it didn't feel like they were in, just on out on an island by themselves. Before, I felt like the camera operators go out there, like, yeah, they're a part of the broadcast, but they really have no idea what's going on or anything like that, or if we're even getting the shot that we want. If there's a kid that wasn't doing a very good job, like, I'd have to send someone down, or I'd have to go down, and talk with them to say, hey, here's kind of what we're looking for. Let's shoot more towards this. And those were good conversations. It's the same thing we'd have now on our comm system, but that was kind of the big bottleneck as we went from one or two cameras, because anybody can kind of set up a one or two camera broadcast, get at least some sort of graphic, whether it's just a score, and what quarter it is, or anything like that. Like those are all viable things, even as a one man band, a two-man band, all those types of things. Like you can make a little broadcast like that, but when you're trying to get multiple people to work together, I mean, it's an obvious one. Like you got to have communication, and that lets them kind of feel like they're more a part of the broadcast. You could tell them all of the good things they're doing, and then you also get to critique and tell them, "Hey, we don't necessarily want to see that. We want to see something else." Or what my camera operators love to do, like it's a sport, so the ball's usually the most important part, and so they'd all follow that, all have the exact same shot. And so you're trying to switch, and you're like, I can't switch anything because you guys are literally all pointing at the same thing. So now we've been able to work through that with communication system and allow a kid like, hey, we want you to be on the crowd when something big happens, and now we can get that crowd reaction while also having that player shot. And so it's really added some depth to our broadcast. But just being able to communicate obviously is a big one. It's great if you can sit side by side, but a lot of times that's not going to be the case. You're going to be out and about, especially when you start adding wireless cameras and all that kind of stuff. Um, it makes it a lot easier, and it makes the kids feel like they're not necessarily out on a island by themselves and not really invested in the program. So that was what it was to start. And then as we got to growing and growing and growing, we basically maxed out our equipment. We were adding 5 or 6 NDI cameras. We were adding NDI audio. And so that 1 gig network switch that our IT guys gave us was not working anymore. And so I've had to really expand and get the back end the last couple of years. It's not been the fun purchases that I want to make, but it has made life 1,000 times easier being able to send that video back and forth. So, and it's something I like. I have really no IT background, but I'm all networked now, and so I'm having to learn a lot as we go, and getting help from our IT guys, of course, obviously. But that's kind of the big bottlenecks. Taylor in the chat asked, did I apply for any grants? So when I first started, I was borrowing equipment, like I said. And then we got to the point where it was time for us to upgrade and go with something. And I was like, I have no idea what to go for. So I asked our local ESPN broadcast for college. I said, what do I need to get? Like, I have no idea. It's the same boat that I'm sure some of us new teachers and new programs are like, what do I even need to get to even try to get something beyond a camera and a graphic up there? And so he goes, there's lots of options. You can go with the expensive stuff like we have, but there's a learning curve with it for sure. And he goes, or you're honestly, your best bet's to go with the TriCaster. And so that's what we went with. And so I had to go learn the TriCaster. I had a little bit of experience on it on one of the old ones that are previous, or when I was in high school, but this one had a lot more bells and whistles. And we did not take advantage of a lot of those to start with, which was fine. But it was a learning curve. And then we got to the point where the 1 gig network card, even in the TriCaster, was a bottleneck for us, where we couldn't get everything we wanted out without it being really, really choppy. And so there was one here that every time we'd throw something up on the video board, it was choppy as can be, and it was about driving me nuts. But we worked through it, figured out what was going on, what we needed to get upgraded, and now everything for the most part usually goes pretty smooth. Like there's always a fire or two that need to go out, or a kid that is struggling with equipment, or the the usual suspect, like, oh, they plugged HDMI in instead of out to whatever device they needed to do, even though they can't see anything. So overall, it's been a learning curve, but he asked the grants and stuff. The TriCaster, we got lucky and applied for a community grant, and so that paid for $10,000 of the TriCaster. There was still a chunk, and my program's interesting. Like we in Missouri, I'm a business CTE teacher, so I get a 50-50 grant that I can apply for. So the DESI or will pay for half of it, and I get to pay for half of it. Which I say I pay for half of it. It's our athletics program. I've not, besides my teaching contract, got any dollars from academics. It's all been from athletics, mainly because our AD understands and realizes like what I'm doing makes him look really good. It makes our athletic program look really good, and so he's been all on board for me. And we've been able to get the word out over COVID. The fun one was like college coaches were no longer able to travel and recruit. So one of our girls basketball broadcasts, she had I think 16 or 17 different college coaches reach out and say, "Hey, we were watching your game. It was a great broadcast. Like, we loved what you guys are doing here." And so these college coaches were have the ability to recruit our kids during that time. So that was a big deal to them. Nothing, I had never expected that. I hadn't even had that on my radar until an email came across from our girls basketball coach and was like, "Hey, we have this many coaches that reached out to me after this game tonight because they were watching and were like so impressed and loved the kids that were working on it." So there are definitely opportunities to get. A lot of it is sponsorship too. You can pull sponsorships and get some of these bigger time purchases. But yeah, there's grants and opportunities, sponsorships out there available to you. And so, like I said, you can always, if you as you start growing your program, the community most of the time is going to be like, "Hey, we love what you're doing. We get to sit at home when we're an hour away for an away game. Like we want to support you and help you." And so that's one way. Other, you can always get an Amazon wish list too. If you need to send the equipment out a lot. I don't think I've ever bought an actual battery for our broadcast. I always put that on the wish list, and the parents and community they always provide batteries for me. So, and that's usually a fairly inexpensive thing that someone can be like, "Hey, I can support and help you on that." So, little things like that.
Wow. I don't think I've ever thought about that. That's quite a brilliant idea, and not forcing anyone to buy anything, but hey, if you do enjoy it, like here's how you can contribute. I think about like here in Nebraska, we have Nebraska Public Media, and it's very much publicly funded. There's some other dollars to it, but a lot of kind of their sports coverage, they do a lot of things like, hey, for $20 a month, and then they give you giveaways or stuff like that. And so just kind of
Yep.
taking that idea of using some crowdsourcing, some crowdfunding to kind of help get things moving along, especially the lower ticket items. So yeah, and I think just as we're talking about all this, I'll go for it.
For sideline reporter, we used to have one mic that would cut in and out, and I said, "All right, as a silent reporter, you guys are wanting to do these big pre games where you got two or three, four people even on at once doing the what do you call them, the pick of the week or whatever. They want to make it a four-person thing. I'm like, well, I don't have four mics, but if you all want to reach out to your fans and family and get this package that's got the four mics that's built in, like it's one receiver we can plug in, go for it." Within the week, we had four mics. We had all of that. Like it's one of those things like the kids once they get excited about it, their parents a lot of times are willing to support them and help them, even grandparents. It's the old even elementary school, like get your grandparents to help with the fundraiser, give you money type of thing. Like people are willing, especially when you get to a group like me where I've got 60 kids in here, like someone in the group is willing to give something. And so even if you're small, like don't be afraid to ask for help. Like I said, batteries never, I may have maybe the first couple the first year, but after that, like I've got plenty of batteries because people just send them my way. Even
Yeah,
lights, for like our silent reporter, they want a light right now. I'm like, all right, well, we'll put it in our list and we'll see if someone can donate it. And she's like, well, I'll have someone on it before. She still has not made that happen yet. So I'm gonna hold her to that come this fall. But I'm sure we'll have one before too long.
either that or you'll see a Strive audiovisual giveaway for Lightseer in
Yeah,
the
that's
near
perfect.
future. I don't know. The man to talk to about that's on this call, but it's not me.
That's right. I'm real quick. I'm going to do number three. So, what do viewers complain about? A lot of time, I will get notification pretty much when anything goes wrong, maybe 100 different ways from 100 different people. And so, just listening and trying to, if there's something that you know you can fix to fix that problem, do it. And if you can do it in the instant, even better. But a lot of times, like I'm just too busy during a broadcast, like I may see something's not working, but unless my phone's like really blowing up that I know something's really not working, I may not check it or see it. But audio is a big one that will turn people away really quick. And I am definitely not necessarily the person to talk to on that. That's one of my weak spots is audio. Luckily, Hoosier there is a audio expert there, so I need to probably lean on you a little bit for that. But making sure you have good, clean audio that will keep people on, keep people happy, and then making sure you don't have these just crazy jerks and movements on cameras, trying to stay smooth as you want. Those are usually the big complaints. Now, if the internet's crappy and going in and out, there's not a lot I can do about that. Not a lot the viewer at home can do about it either. But just keeping that in the back of your mind and keeping notes, like anytime someone complains about something, put it on a sheet. That way you can say, hey, this is something I need to start working on or something I need to pay more attention to.
Love it. And yeah, look at this. From that first picture to this.
So where they're sitting is exactly, it's actually right in front of where that picture was taken before. I'm standing up on top of our booth where we've got our video board operator, our wide shot camera, and then looking down at the area that we got to build in front of. And so, yeah, it's been kind of cool to see all of that, like those desks that I have there, the staging that their kids are sitting on. That's all stuff that the school had and was getting rid of. Like those tables were surplus stuff. I'm like, why is anybody surplusing this? I'll take them from my classroom, but it wasn't available to me, so I grabbed it. It didn't always look that pretty and fancy. We had plastic folding tables there for the longest time. But then we found this and kind of got to grow and move up. So we went from production truck. The Huddle now owns it. It was Blue Frame at the time. Didn't work very well then. I think it works a lot better now. I've used it a couple times for various things. Onto the TriCaster, and then you can see right there what we currently have is vmix. We've got two different vmix machines actually, one for the producing, and then Replay has its own vmix machine. And then over there on the side right side you can see our graphics operator running graphics. So not as clean as I would like it to be, obviously, but that's how it is sometimes when you're trying to make stuff work and moving stuff around. But yeah, we went to a vmix. I kind of talked about that. 2 years now, we're up to 60 kids. We started my second year as a club, we had 14. And I say 14, it was more like 7 or 8, but there were 14 signed up. There were some loyal ones, and there were some every once in a while they might show up type of things. Already talked about what I wish I'd known sooner: communication, structure, the SOPs we really honed in on this year. And the kids are still not great. It's going to take some training, I feel like, this year, just getting them used to going to the SOP, and having them look through it, get everything done and checked off before they get going. This year, they were work in progress, so we didn't really have anything to go by, but they were building them. And if something came up, they wouldn't go to SOP first, and then they would come to me most of the time. So we're getting all that structure kind of in place where SOP comes first, then you're going to go to some of your team leads or someone who has experience on the crew. And then if we still have issues, then that person can come see me and we can address whatever the bigger issue or whatever's happening come up. And so then what I would skip is the real big expensive equipment. Like we went to a TriCaster that cost, I don't know, $25,000 to now I've got a vmix machine that's custom built that was $7,000. And since I had a 50/50 grant, it was $3,500 for me. And so a school district can be like, oh, we can handle $3,500. And you could handle $3,500 probably too and make a vmix machine that would work. I needed one that was real bulky and crazy, that now we got 10 gig and 25 gig network switches that move stuff around. But it's not what I needed to start with. And so it was kind of interesting to see, like, TriCaster is definitely easy to use. I had no problems with it. Like, the user face interface is simple, but I feel like nowadays, now that I know more, for one, like vMix can handle just about anything the TriCaster does. It looks a little different from time to time, but it's definitely a cheaper option for someone trying to get going, even for a smaller school. So yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. And this next page, 14-person crew, I think kind of just briefly go over it, or at least this is just a kind of display, but I think this will be great when we talk about in week 3, kind of crew and operations, just kind of going through what it takes, and then kind of how you organize it. But as you can see, all of this equipment that Jordan has, it takes people to run it, right?
yep,
And so that's when I was talking about earlier. It's like, okay, um, we have this decision to make when we're purchasing equipment. Are we buying something that we know we're going to have enough students to actually utilize, or are we just buying this because it sounds cool and we had the grant money, but like it's just going to sit, maybe not in the closet, it might get used, but is it getting used to its fullest potential? Like I look at, all of the camera switchers in the bottom 2 pictures, and I'm like, there's a lot of buttons on there. But if you only have 2 people that run a camera, why do you have a panel that can handle more than 2 inputs if you're only going to run 2, right? Um, you could just buy 2 capture cards. They're a couple $100 a piece for $400, and now you just do it in software, right? So like those are the types of things that I think about to keep this um, kind of money saving for schools, in a sense. Like you're still going to spend money, but like let's make sure we're spending it on the right thing, and just know that like you need the director and assistant director the second you start adding more cameras. And you maybe need that assistant director to help the sideline reporter know, like, hey, now we're going to send it down to you here shortly, and kind of organize some of the storytelling and pieces about it. You need stats if you're going to try to do, um, graphics work and have live up to date graphics. You need someone kind of tracking that data point. And so it's awesome. It's really cool. Sounds fun. Um, but again, it didn't start like this, but it definitely grew to it. And so I think that's the biggest thing. And
yeah.
yeah,
And so the 14-person crew, kind of like you said there, you see down on that bottom left corner, that's our indoor setup. And then you can see on the 2 right, or the 3 pictures on the right, that's the football stadium. We have a production truck that we travel with. And so we throw everything from inside outside. And so it looks like I have a lot, but a lot of that is like duplicate equipment, obviously. I just talked about, you can see in the bottom right, like football season, we were still using the TriCaster. And so we used the TriCaster all the way up through, I guess, November of this year. And then we actually donated it to our theater department, because we have a big theater department and they have a lot of big shows and different things that come in and then out of that theater. And so they now have the capability to use it. So it's one of those things, like I was able to upgrade to vMix. They gave me a few more options. TriCaster was kind of hitting the limits on, just because of that 1 gig network card. And so I was able to give that to someone else and still let them use it and not just throw it away for no reason. And then the beauty of it is, when we go do a production in the theater, we also now get to use that TriCaster in there. So Baccalaureate, when we had that this just a month ago, we got to just take cameras in there. We didn't have to take the whole system and everything back and forth, which was really nice, because the next day I had a soccer game outside. So I was like, I really don't have to move everything inside for one night and then move it all right back out again. Um, and so, like I said, we move a lot of equipment back and forth just because I want the kids to be visible. And that's what's helped kind of market and grow our program, I feel like. But yeah, there's no one set way to do it. That's the other thing I would say. Like, equipment and gear, really, when I think about it, we're just like another sports team. Like, we all have different players on our team, but how we structure practice, how we run a game, like everyone has different plays. We all use different stuff, but in the end, they still have to get that goal, basketball in the hoop or whatever it might be, or football in the end zone. There's no one way to do it. And so that's what I like to see about the community. When I run replay, I ran a lot different. When I went to Nebraska for the state championships, I got to see another crew run replay that I am like, I think I need to steal some points from that, because they did it much differently than what I did. And it was, I feel like definitely, I don't know if it was better, but there was definitely better parts of it. I'm like, I need to incorporate a lot of this in there, into our broadcast as well. So there's no, like, when we talk about equipment and gear, there's 1,000 different ways to go about it. There will be 1,000 new different ways here in the next month or two or year or 5 years down the road. And so one thing I would stress is like not buying because of what you potentially think you could grow into, but just buying like for the moment for the next 2 or 3 years, because in 5 years, who knows what the production will look like. I may be scrapping all of this that I have and starting over with something brand new, fancy and crazy. But for now it works. And we've been able to grow it to that 14-person crew. I tried to list everything kind of out there. We all have to work together. Um, Especially the director and assistant director, because we will have a live stream going. We'll also have, most of the time it's the same for the video board, but they can have different shows going on the video board, especially for crowd interaction and stuff when we go into commercials that we don't show on the video board. So there's a lot of different kind of parts, moving parts that are going on. And then a lot of times there'll be someone in-house, not a student of mine, but I hope to get there one day, doing kind of like in-house entertainment, entertaining the crowd and fans to, so there could possibly be different kind of 3 different shows going on all at the same time for the same team. And so yeah, that 14-person crew, like it takes a lot of us all working together. That's why that communication was a big part there. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, and if you can't believe it, we're only on slide 8 of 16. So, uh,
work.
no, this is awesome. This is good stuff. I think here's one of the things about that we've seen just working with the schools, and we want you to not be the program that makes these, right? But one of the first things mistakes we've seen people make is over investing in one area, right? You go big on cameras, but you use a $20 gaming headset or a laptop microphone. Like, yeah, people are going to notice. And um, it's the, what is it, a rising tide lifts all ships. Like as you're building your broadcast, and we talked about those different areas earlier, like they all have to kind of go right, because what people will notice is, I like to call it perceived quality, not peak quality. There's perceived quality, and audio, if it's not good, takes that perceived quality way down. Even if I'm watching an ESPN broadcast, and it happens seldomly, but sometimes they get like that audio glitch where it like da 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 da, and it's like, oh boy, either someone's getting fired or strict talking to, or it'll be solved here quickly. But the second I hear that, I immediately mute. Whether I'm on my computer or TV, I mute it, and it takes my perceived quality of that broadcast down. Right, even though the cameras are amazing, they're really expensive and it looks fantastic, it doesn't sound great for a little bit, and that just, we've come to expect a certain level, and that, you know I don't like it, so then I mute it, and hopefully it gets fixed, and then maybe I take a chance and unmute it, or I just leave it muted the rest of the time, right? So that's one of the ways that people can kind of make a mistake. Upgrading before auditing. We I visited quite a few schools, and I always love it because the first question they're like, "Could we use this in our broadcast?" Like they'll just take me to like this random room that has a bunch of technology, and I'm like, "Okay, so that's like a $5,000 camera, so like you should be using that. That's like a $300 piece that definitely could be used to enhance your broadcast, or these microphones, like." My mom is moving from being a fourth grade teacher to choir teacher, and in the music room, there's just a lot of stuff, and so she's been going through it this summer, and she's like, "Do I need these?" And they're like Beta 58A microphones, and there's like 5 of them. Like, mother, those microphones are all at least $100 or more, and they're high quality microphones. Like, do not get rid of those. Like, please keep them, and actually, please put them under lock and key because they're that nice and good for music quality. And we found another couple microphones that were like $400 microphones that weren't in a case. They were just in this old bag, just sitting on the bottom of it. I'm like, oh goodness, like we need to do an audit, right? So audit your gear, and if that means reaching out to me or Taylor to kind of go through what you have and what can work, uh, we would love to help you with that, right? That's what we want to help you do, because we do understand that you might not know exactly what a piece is, um, and we spend our time, in the industry looking around at all of the different pieces of equipment you can buy. So we will have a pretty good idea. The third one is adding before mastering, and we kind of already hit on this a little bit, but like, if you don't have that video, where that your director can efficiently and effectively punch a show, which is what we call directing. They can hit the buttons at the right time and go to this camera. If that's not good, don't add more cameras if they don't already know how to manage their three cameras, right? Because it starts it starts to curve, right? It's an exponential curve when you start adding stuff. It's no longer just, hey, and the biggest leap we tell schools is going from one camera to two, right? That's the biggest leap you'll make, because now you have to get a system that's capable of multiple cameras. Now there's different sizes and levels, but going from just one camera to two means now you need communication. Now you need something that can handle multiple things. Now you need someone telling which camera's on and knowing how to direct a show. And so that's the largest gap you make. And then it just keeps going up in complexity. So um, don't try to add more before you're very much comfortable and set with where you're at. And then we can grow. And then chasing excitement over impact. Gear's exciting. Me and Taylor were talking about this in our gear episode of our podcast. It's exciting, but sometimes it gets used for a few times, and all of a sudden it's like, well, now we don't have a kid to run it, and so it just sits dormant until you have a kid that's able to run it again. And sometimes with sports being seasonal, you might get an athlete who they play football but not basketball, and so they can really activate their streaming and their broadcasting involvement during their off season. But then during that season, now you don't have your one replay operator, and so replays don't get ran. And it's like, okay, so now we're effectively only running this for one of the seasons, or we can't for one of the seasons, and so that's part of chasing the excitement over impact, and honestly, doing less better is sometimes, or most of the time, better than doing more worse. Does that make sense, Jordan? Did I just come up with a saying that we should put on a T-shirt? I don't know. I think we're there somewhere. So sometimes it's better to do less better than more worse. So that is my new phrase. It might be in my email signature by the end of the day. So kind of going through here quickly, because I know we've hit the hour, but it's such good stuff. As you can tell, me, Jordan, even when me and Taylor talk, we could talk about this all day. And so the best thing we've ever done is said, we're going to record this so that people can actually hear it. So sequence does matter, right? And so we have built a gear map, me and Taylor, and it's built on the experience we've had, and Eric Allgood, who worked for us, and we kind of going through the sequence of building stuff. And the first thing is setting that foundation, right? So you start with a camera, you got to implement a scoreboard so the viewers know what's going on, and your students can kind of start building and running that solo. Then you start adding in your announcers. So now you got to get an audio mixer, maybe get some more on-screen graphics like a matchup, moving to multicam. Again, that jump involves more cameras, a video switcher, crew communications. Then you can start adding replays, hoop and wall cams. One of the things we'd love to see is more audio, right? So setting up some dedicated mics under the hoop, get some hoop mics, and get some more like shotgun mics kind of pointed at the court to get some more squeaks. Like that's when I think of sports, like audio really is the video shows you that you're there, but you know that you're not necessarily there because you're watching on a screen. But it's the audio that can really add that immersion that, hey, I can hear what's going on. And that's, again, that's half of the battle is getting that good audio. And then you can move to a pro studio. And of course, there's a couple different ways. We always think when you hear studio, oh, it's going to be a classroom. But I think what Jordan has done, which is fantastic, is kept that studio out of the open, right? It's a studio with no walls, which I think is fantastic because, as he said, people can see the gear. They can see what's going on, and they can see that students are running it. Most importantly, and I think that's the key is they see that there are students giving the commands, saying what to do next. There are students leading it, and so that's really good. So if you're watching this on the replay, we have a free broadcast equipment guide. I'll have the link in the notes. Go to strive.education/levels, and you can download your free guide, and that kind of gives you more information on this. But again, the idea is start to spend your money and try to identify what level you're at, what's missing. There's some people that are on level 3 that don't have good audio, right? And so they've moved on before they've mastered something. And again, just to kind of really reiterate what we've been talking about, right? Gear doesn't build programs. The systems do, the students do, right? Don't buy for where you hope to be, right? And we've talked about this and have kind of hammered it at this point, right? And technology changes, right? And that's partially why I have a job, right? Is because sometimes the industry of technology advances so quickly that you as a teacher, your day job is to be teaching students, and broadcasting, like for Jordan, is not the majority of what he teaches. And so we all have to stay connected and engaged to this ever revolving world of technology. And so I can sit here and when all the companies release all their new products at NAB, one year I got to go in person, but just reading all this stuff and seeing what's new, like I can spend my time figuring out what's actually worth it, cutting through all the marketing, stuff that people do and are really good at, and say this is actually what is going to be useful and needed, and provide those recommendations to you guys, right? Because it's revolving so fast. Every 6 months you get new stuff, and then what that allows you to do is then spend your money in a smart way and grow on purpose. And what I don't like is when I get on a call with either a new customer or a teacher, and they're like, "Yeah, we bought this thing and it didn't work," and I'm like, "Oh boy." I was like, or they're like, "We bought this thing, now how do I integrate it?" And I have to tell them, "Well, that doesn't work," right? Um, and it's not that everyone has to consult me before they spend money, but because of the experience and the knowledge, it's like we could have saved you from that purchase, and that's what part of the mission is out there to help avoid that stuff. Um, and then the last part is, and this kind of it piggybacks on all of it, is you're not building your program alone. Jordan mentioned it earlier, like post in future ready educators if you have a question. We have a community of teachers that are doing this, and I'm in there, Jordan's in there, Rob Goff, who's joined the call live, he's in there, and he's obviously built a pretty good program. They've got a TriCaster and 3-play system at Kearney, and so there are teachers who have been doing this for a while and would love to help you grow it, because they've all been through it where it was just them, right? And so they've been on that island. They have found community now, and that's where we need to stay is in that community to help everyone grow. And then I think kind of the last part, Jordan, that we had kind of talked about is just kind of investing in repeatability, systems, things that you can just do time and time again, that start to become easier for your students to kind of grasp. And that's what allows you to move to that next level is having repeatability to master where you're at and then go above it.
I feel like that also allows you to not have to be at every game as well. Once the kids know what's going on, have an idea of what they need to be doing, that can allow you to not have to be there for every single game, or have to set everything up ahead of time for them. They can start doing those things for themselves. And once you start doing a good broadcast and start getting you going, everyone's going to want a piece of you. They're going to be like, hey, we need you to film this. We need you to film that. We need you to record and stream this. And so that's kind of the big one. You have to be careful on that because if not, you'll wear yourself thin and be worn out. That also allows you to grow and get more kids involved as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna Rob Goff, if your microphone works, just love your opinion on that. What Jordan just said of like, once you start to get good, then people start like for you at Kearney High, the broadcast is just one piece of the game night. And I've seen you on game night, and you're a very busy man sometimes. I'm not hearing anything. I can see you talking, but let double check your mic here. Nothing yet. Well, that's all right. I'll kind of give a little synopsis of it, and unless you can figure it out. If you figure it out, butt in and interrupt me. But one of the things that I've observed going there is sometimes Rob is running the score vision video board, right, and being the one to trigger that stuff, and just all of the you have the in venue entertainment. They now have that Luxido projection system that goes on the court, and so there's a lot of elements to game day that um, once you start becoming known as, hey, you're the broadcast person, they're gonna start asking like, hey, now can you do this and this, and it starts becoming less on the broadcast and more on the in venue side. And we've even seen that with our productions that we do when we go to events. It's like, you know, the thing that we're getting paid to do is show up and broadcast the game to an online audience, send it to a destination. But then the in venue people are like, well, we'd love a clean video feed up on the board. It's like, okay, we have the system now, fortunately, to do that. But now we have to be responsible for getting that connection, getting that signal to them. So it's definitely like you got to be careful, and once you commit to something, are you able to continue doing that? So no mic for Rob Goff still. I know. What the heck? That's what I get for trying to pull an audible and call you out of the audience here. We'll get it. Rob does know how to talk though, so we're not worried about that. We've had quite a few calls that have been scheduled for 15, 20 minutes, and we hit about the hour mark, and I'm like, it's all good stuff. When you're pulling knowledge from Rob Goff, it's a good day. So yeah, we've kind of talked about these, right? Find your number one bottleneck, rank your wish list by impact, um, audit one category. So these are things that if you want to actually do something, if you're like me and you sit and you listen to us talk and you're here at hour and 12 minutes on the timestamp, like these are three things that you can do, right? You can go back to the bottleneck slide and look at those questions and figure out what your bottleneck is. You can start a wish list and you can rank it, right? Start out by listing what you want and then reorder by what's actually going to make the most impact with what you have. And if you need help with that and you just have a raw list, send it to me or to Jordan. Like, we would love to take a look at it and kind of give our thoughts and opinions, because we are very opinionated people and we're not afraid to share it. So you will get to know what we're thinking, or audit a category. Do what Jordan did and go back and look at your streams if you have that capability. Some people record, Jordan, you stream to YouTube, so it's always, it's automatically recorded, and so you have a huge library of all of your events, and so it's like, go and look back at the stream 3 streams ago and say, all right, how did we do on our intro portion? Does everything sound right with our wireless sideline reporters? Is everything good? And if there's something missing, that's where you hit that upgrade. So um, those are just some things. I'm not going to call it homework for you teachers because it's the summer, and you don't need you need to finally not do something, but just to get your mind thinking when you have free time. If you're really thinking about growing your program, right, and you really spend some time on this, these are the three places I would start first.
These
Do
three
we
will
have
also help save
before?
you headaches too, going forward, especially when it comes to fall. You got football season, and it's right off the bat, and you're trying to help anybody and everybody. Like getting this kind of stuff set up, knowing what your issues might be ahead of time, trying to fix those, very useful.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now, Hoosier?
very faintly. So we do have some audio from Rob Goff at least.
Okay. Yeah, it's got weird. I got a new computer, so my settings must be like off. I don't know why it's not bringing it in.
But yeah, we got you now.
Okay.
So if you want if you wanted to correct anything I said earlier.
Well, no, that's what me. Exactly what Jordan is saying here. What are what are you going to do, or what are you doing right now, and then do that really, really well before you add. The same thing. Don't just buy something really cool because someone else's school is doing it, because unless you can. Um, but yeah, like we've gone to a lot more like game day atmosphere. And so sometimes we've had to like take our broadcasting back a little bit, because I've had to pull kids to do audio or lights for our gym and our run out. And so that's we've had that complication, and that's becoming bigger and bigger too. It's kind of game day management and game day atmosphere, which it's kind of cool, but I kind of like the broadcasting side. So you have to allocate your resources where the best fits sometimes.
Yeah, and that is
Yeah, we
the thing. And I'll go for it, Jordan. My
What
bad.
do you, Jordan?
we run the boat as well. It's now that we have these big productions, like you need to add this and that to the video
Oh,
board, and you need to add this to game day. And so yeah, I definitely feel that I've got at least the light situation figured out to where the freshman team is the one that does that. So whoever's on the freshman team or on a 3-game night or whatever it might be, I'm like, I'm not having my kids do lights. You guys can find someone from your team, JV, whatever it might be, a bench player. I don't care. They can at least flip the lights on and off, because I was in the same boat. I was losing kids to run a camera, and then I'm like, well, now I don't have anything to put up there. Just
right.
a wide shot, great. So yeah, game days are definitely, especially you grow it. And get the bigger productions and things, people will ask more of you. Like we now have crowd games at halftime for football that we run and manage. And so our halftime for football at a home game looks a lot different than it does for a away game, because now our focus is more on the video board and entertaining the people in house than it is entertaining the people that are sitting on their couch. So I definitely feel the game day side of things. And I mean, a lot of it is they want that fun atmosphere, not only um, or for the kids on the field and fans. But if you can, I feel like if you can make that also happen, like your live stream is going to be better. I say better. More people will be watching because they're going to be invested in your community. That's what I feel like has happened. Yes, we bring a fun live stream, but we've also helped produce a fun atmosphere in house. So people are going to our games, but they're also either going back and watching or also watching our live streams if they can't make it. So you definitely have to find kind of a balance there and entertain at both parties. So
Yeah, I love it. Last slide here. As we talk about it, figuring out your upgrade path is just one piece, right? Um, Figuring out the equipment is, yes, it's important to have those in place for your students. But there's a lot more that we're going to be talking about, right? So next week is graphics, and I'll go to the next slide here in just a second. But like um, building the whole broadcast program, there are multiple facets to it, and some teachers might be really good at the gear aspect. I think of Marcus Shear at Johnson County Central. He is, he's an IT guy. He's in charge of their infrastructure. He knows the gear. He knows the technology, and he also loves watching broadcasts. And so he and I can talk. We've talked for hours about, how could we, using our equipment, do something that ESPN has done with their complicated equipment, and just trying to break down the complex ideas into simple ones for students. And so what you're getting by being in Future Ready Educators and working with Striv Education is that group of people that are passionate about this. Whether you have the passion for it yet or not, my hope is that by the end of it you do, because you're going to spend so much time with the nerds and the people that love doing this that it's gonna you know, rub on you like, here we go. This is what we want to do. We want to do broadcasting. We want to take it to the next level. And so, kind of teasing this, but coming this fall is our broadcast excellence program. And so, we'll have more details to share in week 4 as we get to the end of it. But the whole idea is, what are systems, routines, things that you can do on a yearly at a specific time during the year on a cadence to continue to make your broadcast program better. And if you work with us, we might even make it a competition, give away some trophies. I know everyone loved the Strive Education score. So again, more on that. We're going to build it out. We have a lot of it built out already in the head, and now we just got to make it a reality. And so I'm super excited for that. But again, if you have any questions, either in the comments on the replay, or just message us, or just put in an FRE. It doesn't even have to be a direct message to us. Just make a post in Future Ready Educators. There's a space called Ask a Question, and hopefully it doesn't take a genius to know that maybe you should ask a question there. And then, yeah, coming next week, we're going to talk about broadcast graphics. Jordan's apparently created this whole thing like Jordan does, and what we were talking a little bit about this presentation. Me and Jordan don't go to bed early, so it was quite late at night when we were talking about all this fun stuff. So that's the passion that drives it. And so again, we want to make this the broadcast better, and so the driving question is, how can we make it look more like TV, but also how can we make it be its own thing, right? It doesn't have to look like a traditional TV broadcast if that's not what your fans expect. If they expect it to feel a little bit more like a stream, like, I've yet to see it, but I would love to see, you know how like when you're streaming to Twitch and it has like the comments, like people can like live comment. Like, I know that's kind of a dangerous thing, but I would love to see some broadcasts that have like really active viewers. Like, I'd love to see some of that chat pull up to see what people are thinking. I don't know. It might be a bad thing, but that would look more like a traditional stream than a TV broadcast. So, yeah. Well, Jordan, thank you for being on. Thank you for your work on this. You got one more thing?
Gear and equipment. All is great, but the one thing that will drive kids away from your broadcast program, or even fans away, is if you have equipment that's not working and a kid is assigned to that position and they just have to sit there and do nothing. I've had that happen many of times. Like, I want to try to add a new thing or do a new thing. Like, you have to make sure the right kid's in that spot, because if not, and it fails on them and they just sit there and do nothing, like, it's not fun for them. And so you want to make sure that you have that foundation, like we've talked about, everything lined up, ready to roll. There's going to be things that happen that are out of your control. Like, something's working one week and then all of a sudden the next week it doesn't work at all. Like, that's going to happen. But if you can limit that and have a place for a student, not just one that's, hey, here's what you're going to be assigned to do. For instance, for me, we had PTZ cameras, and I was really super excited about it. We had 3 of them, but every time we tried to plug them in, since they were PoE powered, like, it wasn't great connection to start with. And then the iPad, or not the iPad, the controller we had was like a second delayed. And so it just made for not a very fun experience, which meant the cameras that they had didn't get used very often. And so I ended up ditching that completely, because it was just something like, it was great plans. And we still use our PTZs, but not in really not even in a broadcast. It's more for me for supervision purposes, where I can keep an eye on kids, that they're on there, but because they're just hard to control. And so it was one of those things, like, I thought the kid could handle it, and the kid could handle it. Like, they're used to video games and all that. But when it's delayed and doesn't work like it needs to, or right, there's a problem. So making sure you try to fix those kind of, that was another bottleneck I had, was trying to implement something, even though it wasn't quite ready, having a kid do it and it fail, and they just sit there for the entire night, not doing anything. and that doesn't help the program and it doesn't help them. And usually those are the kids you end up losing along the way. So yeah, that's one thing I want to add. I didn't have that in the slides. I just thought about it while you were talking. So thought I'd add that little snippet in.
See, that is why we had you. That's why we had you on this, because you are wealth of knowledge and experience. So we appreciate everyone, Rob and Taylor and Jordan, that were here live, and hopefully next week we'll have more people on the live. But if you're watching this on the recording, thank you, and hopefully you got something out of this. I know I did, just by talking through this and thinking about this. Right, my mind is starting to go to what's next, what can we do, how can we improve, and so. We will have the replay posted. If you're watching this recording, obviously you've seen it. We're gonna start. If you got questions, drop them in Future Ready Educators. We're always active, even during the summer. At least I am. So I'm always ready to go to talk about broadcasting and anything in it. So with that, we'll see you next Monday, where we're gonna get to see what Jordan has built. He hasn't even shown me, so I'm truly, genuinely excited. I've heard about it. And I can't wait for you guys to see it. So until next Monday, hope everyone's having a great start to the summer, and stay caffeinated or something like that. At least I am. So we'll see you guys. Thanks.